My name is Laura. I am 32 years old and I work for a small magazine. My job is simple because I take pictures of people and places. One day my boss gave me a strange job. He told me to go to a new building site near the river and take photos of the workers. I did not like the idea because construction sites are loud and dirty, but I still took my camera and went there. When I arrived, the workers were shouting and laughing. They were big men with dusty clothes. Some of them looked at me and laughed because I was a woman. One man said women bring bad luck to building sites, but I ignored them and focused on my work. I walked near a big pile of bricks because I wanted to photograph the tall wall behind it. Suddenly, my foot slipped and I fell forward. At the same moment, the pile of bricks started to move and fall toward me. A tall worker named Mark quickly ran to help me. He tried to stop the falling bricks with his arms, but one brick hit his head and he fell down. Without thinking, I grabbed his heavy arms and pulled him away from the falling bricks. Even though I was small, fear gave me strength, and finally we were safe. The workers stared at me in silence because a small woman had just saved the strongest man on the site. After a few minutes, Mark opened his eyes. His friends began laughing and teasing him because I had saved him. Mark felt embarrassed and angry, and soon the workers started shouting and fighting with each other. I lifted my camera and took a photo of the moment because it was a powerful scene. Later that day, I tried to talk to Mark and told him I was glad he was okay. But he looked at me coldly and said he did not need help from rich girls. His words surprised me and made me angry. I told him that I had a chair at home with more heart than him, and then I left. That night I was sitting in my apartment when the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Mark was standing there holding my camera stand that I had forgotten at the site. He stepped inside and looked around my clean apartment. Then he jokingly asked where the chair with more heart than him was. Before I could answer, he suddenly stepped closer and kissed me quickly. I pushed him away, but he only smiled and said now I would remember him. Then he left, and I stood there feeling angry, confused, and thinking about him all night. 2 weeks later, our magazine published the photo of the workers fighting. Because of that photo, Mark lost his job, and when I heard the news I felt guilty. I went to see him and offered him a job as my assistant because my previous assistant had left. I told him he could help me carry my equipment and work with me. At first Mark was suspicious and asked why I wanted to help him, but after a moment he accepted the job. That night I told my sister my secret plan. I said I would work with him until I stopped thinking about him because he was loud and rude, so I would soon get bored of him. My sister laughed and said I was playing with fire, but I did not listen. For the next few weeks Mark worked with me every day. He carried my camera bags and helped me set up lights. Sometimes we argued and sometimes we laughed. Slowly I began to see a different side of him. Mark was not only strong but also very smart. He understood buildings and people very well. One night after work we talked and smiled at each other, and we kissed again. This time the kiss felt warm and real, and I realized that my plan had failed because I liked him even more than before. But our happiness did not last long. One afternoon my sister visited our office and told Mark about my plan while he was outside. When Mark returned and heard the truth, he became very angry. He asked if I thought he was a toy and said I had played with his feelings like a game. I tried to explain, but he did not listen and walked away. Months passed, and the building near the river was almost finished. I went there again to take photos for the magazine. When I arrived, I saw Mark working with the builders and explaining something about the walls. I later learned that Mark was very talented at building design and had found a way to fix a serious problem in the building. While everyone was watching him work, a heavy wooden beam suddenly began to fall toward me. Before I could move, Mark ran and pushed me away from the danger. The beam crashed to the ground, but because Mark stopped his work, the bosses thought his plan had failed and blamed him again. He lost his job once more, and this time it happened because he saved me. Later I looked at the photos I had taken and saw that they showed the truth. Mark's plan had worked perfectly and the building was safe. I showed the photos to the bosses and told them Mark had saved their project, but I asked them not to tell him that I helped. A few weeks later I had a dinner party at my house. During the party my boss Daniel asked me to marry him. Everyone thought Daniel was the perfect man, but my heart felt empty. Suddenly the door opened and Mark walked inside. He looked at me quietly and said he knew the truth that I had helped him. Then he picked up my heavy wooden chair with one hand and pointed at Daniel. Calmly he told me to choose between a safe life and a real one. My heart already knew the answer. I walked toward Mark and he smiled. He lifted me over his shoulder like a child, and together we walked out of the door to start a new life.